Hello. Welcome to my channel Touching Stories. You're about to hear an amazing story about love and unexpected decisions. Enjoy watching. Gela came to her date with Robert a little earlier than the appointed time. While he drove, she ordered a coffee and enjoyed the evening scenery from the veranda of the 14th floor. Huge, endless stream of burning headlights seemed not to move at all. After the heavy autumn rain, the colors were brighter. The air was fresher, and the sensations were sharper. Judging by the dynamics of city traffic, Robert will not be here soon. Gela yesterday finished reading another book about how modern people should live properly. It was a collection of obvious things, but it seems that people only start paying attention to the obvious things when they are presented as book truths. So in this book, there are 4 chapters devoted to why you should take your eyes off your smartphones and pay attention to the scenery here and now. Gela liked the idea. Here she sits and practices, embarrassing those around her with her attention when they rarely take their eyes off their gadgets and occasional cross glances. She seems to be suspicious of those around her. For a modern person, freedom from technology is already wild. The cozy restaurant was slowly filling up with visitors. Quiet music and quiet conversations, semi-darkness in contrast to the bright city glitter outside. Gela began to study visitors around. Though it is indecent, but they don't see that someone studies them to diagnose the epoch and use them to form new trends. Robert is still gone, but Gela begins to like this format of waiting. While Robert is gone, she decides to go to the ladies' room. She wondered if, in the format of today's spontaneous digital detox, she could walk past the large lighted mirrors of the restaurant restroom and not take selfies. No, it didn't work out that way. Selfies in the restroom are, after all, a sacred ritual of the high-tech age. Back at her table, Gela noticed that the segregated area behind her also had visitors. A man and a woman, she noticed with the corner of her eye. Gela sat down in her seat and unwittingly witnessed the conversation from the neighboring table. "Well, darling, you must realize that I am a free woman. You and I have a casual relationship. We agreed on this from the beginning, remember? Now, I don't like that you're putting restrictions on me. It's stressing me out. You weren't like that before." The voice at the table made Gela flinch, but she froze in one position and continued to listen to the man. "Yes, I admit, it's my own fault. I didn't spend much time with you. Business, family, and other things took up a lot of time. But I was always with you," mentally continued to chirp Stan, the father of Gela, who sits at a neighboring table, but thanks to a high screen, she is not visible. Gela decided to make sure, what if it was just a similar voice? She fired up her phone's camera, turned on the front camera, and raised the phone high above her head, pretending to take selfies in a panorama. Some of the people around her got caught in the screen. With the heads of the people at the neighboring table visible in the middle, there was no doubt left in Gela's mind. Yes, that's her birth father. "Well, sorry, dear, that on your mental presence I could not build my life. Happiness from it did not feel. So I had to leave all the illusions and get out of my comfort zone, so to speak," the woman continued. "I'm afraid you have someone," Stan said. "Tell me, what's your soul's desire right now?" "I'm doing relatively well now. I can devote more time to you and myself. Why don't we take a trip? Just say the word." "A trip would be a great idea. I want to see a real jungle, a wild African jungle. I've been looking at current vacations. I mean, there's a hot vacation to Uganda. It's only a week away. What do you think?" The woman changed her tone and passionately continued to outline her most exotic dreams. Gela realized that the evening would never be the same. She gestured to the waiter, paid, and left the restaurant. On the way home, she decided to call her mom. Mom didn't pick up. Gela decided that maybe Mom was busy and would call back when she was free. The street traffic had cleared up a bit and one could already move more freely in the traffic flow. She didn't feel like going home so early. She remembered Robert dialed his number to cancel tonight's date. But the simple domestic conversation again turned into a long argument with mutual recriminations and claims. When Gela hung up the phone, she felt thoroughly broken. How sometimes it can be hard with a man who is almost 30 years old, but he has a childishly painful reaction to everything. But she didn't feel like worrying about that right now. Her father's words with the strange woman were rolling around in her head one by one. Gela realized that she had been in a relationship with her father for a long time. In the second place, she has a distinct psychological advantage. That's because she at least knows what male feelings to push and is generally deftly manipulative. Gela tried to remember all the recent events in her family. She has been living separately from her parents for 3 years now. It turned out that during this time was not particularly interested in how they live. What happens between them? This is understandable when she herself hardly escaped from the battles in their relationship. She suddenly became interested in her mother. Does she know that her husband has a mistress? If she does, how does she feel about it? Why had Gela never once caught her suffering from it? Maybe she just doesn't know. Then she's doubly pitiful. On the other hand, she hasn't shown much love for him. Maybe that's why her father went looking for her on the side. Or, on the contrary, did the mother become cold because the father is doing well outside the house? A million questions in Gela's head, and not a single convincing answer. Mother really is a cold person. Gela has had a bad relationship with her since she was a teenager. She couldn't bear to feel her mother's coldness and burning hatred. Some may argue that a mother cannot hate her child, but many children feel this attitude. This is the kind of hatred that will never be recognized or spoken out loud. Such hatred has a historical significance. It poisons not only the life of the daughter, but also the life of her future husband, the life of their joint children. Gela's grandchildren and their grandchildren will have plenty of it. Unless, of course, someone revisits it retrospectively and processes it on the level of psychotherapeutic practice. But Gela had long forgotten about it. She'd written off her feelings as teenage emotional storms. Just why was it popping up in her mind now? The musings in the car stopped along a large highway, lasted for quite some time, until Gela decided to drive home to her parents' house. She's adamant that she won't tell what she's seen just yet. She's old enough to deal with problems with a cool head rather than making things worse with her emotion. The roads have already become noticeably freer. Gela reached her parents' house quickly. From the street, she noticed that the lights inside the house were off. She opened the door with her key and entered the house. In the house on the first floor, she was met by her mother's domestic helper, Selena. That was her name all her life. So Gela didn't even know what this sullen but very active and clean-cut woman with an unrealized talent as a cook was really called. Selena said briefly that the lady of the house had left home on business hours ago and promised to be back late. And Stan was never in the habit of announcing his time of arrival, so he could come at midnight or near morning. It had been a routine all his life. Gela didn't linger and went to her house. Today, for the first time, she was worried about her parents who, if we're honest, she had never really thought about from an adult's perspective before. As she lay in bed, she remembered a mysterious incident that had taken place a few months ago. At that time, a certain man had written to her in Messenger with a proposal to meet. He justified the need by saying that he knew a little more about Gela's mother than anyone else. So Gela called her mother and asked who it could be. Her mother seemed nervous, then explained that she was going through a rough patch at her studio right now with some internal wrangling going on. There could be intrigue related to that. She asked her daughter to have no contact with the man, block him and put the incident out of her mind. That was the end of the story. But now it directly popped up in Gela's mind, over and over and over again. Why would it? She found that number in the strange dialogue in her messenger. Is it worth bringing it up again? And more importantly, why is she doing this? If parents have some secrets, what right do children have to interfere there? In the relationship between children and parents, very often, no one understands their true, deep motives. That's why problems in relationships look like someone wants more attention or someone does not respect their boundaries and wants to control everyone else. In fact, sincere motives are the same for everyone. The desire to feel love and support for each other. In the deepest recesses of a person's inner world, the well-being of their loved ones is no different from their own well-being. These impulses are stronger in some people. In others, they are weakly expressed. Those who have these impulses vividly cannot let go of control. They have difficulty distinguishing their boundaries from those of their loved ones. And it's not just parents in relation to their children. It can be the other way around, as in Jella's case. She spent her entire childhood dreaming of the family idyll that others have, or at least portrayed. What she got instead was their constant absence from home, the company of a nanny and an au pair. On the rare days when her parents were home, it often ended in scandals, or at least arguments on domestic grounds. The inner world of a child, unlike the world of an adult, is infinitely optimistic. Gela always believed that someday in the future there will be a day when everything will be fine. Mom and Dad will finally earn as much money as they want. They will have free time for their daughter. They will start spending some time at home, and then finally everything will be as dreamed of all these years. They will have a heart-to-heart talk, tell so many things that happened during that time, and never go back to those cold, soulless times again. Seeing her father with another woman, this unshakable dream of the girl was shaken. Her father could go to this woman. What would happen to her mother then? What would happen to Gela's dream of a family idyll, which during the years of her personal formation became the background meaning of life? She wouldn't be able to just let go of her dream. So she decided to take action. She wrote to the strange man that she was ready to meet and listened to whatever he wanted to tell her about her mother. What if it had something to do with her father's secret woman? It could be. And maybe this man would tell her something her mother didn't know? Gela was somehow certain that the secret man was a man. His words on the correspondence sounded confident and firm. The man wrote short and concise. It was clear that this man knew exactly what he wanted to get as a result of his actions. Therefore, Gela was greatly surprised when a woman, not a man, approached her at the appointed place. She introduced herself as Cecilia. According to her, Cecilia is not part of Gela and her parents' social circle at all, but Gela's mother barged into her life on her own. I found out about you from your mom's social media. You see, I had no choice but to take this step. For a long time, I've been trying to get through to her on my own, but she's a stubborn woman, it seems. Cecilia spoke in a calm tone, blowing away the ash from her cigarette. The thing is, my husband Billy got a job as a producer at your mother's studio 2 years ago, and they had an affair. I found out about it a year ago. He and I have 3 children. My husband has no intention of leaving them, but neither does your mother. I hoped she had some female solidarity and a conscience. I met with her several times and tried to talk to her, but these attempts, on the contrary, made her angry. After our meetings, she and my husband stopped even hiding from the public. Gela couldn't find the strength to say anything or react in any way. Her body made it clear that such revelations were clearly too much for her psyche. I wish I hadn't found out, she thought. Well, then you'd find out when things reach the point of no return, echoed another thought. Tell me, please, Cecilia. Why are you telling me all this, and what reaction do you expect me to have? Asked Gela. Your reaction is your business. I don't care about it. When I wrote to you, I was still hoping that your mother would come to her senses. But now I realize that's not true. I just wish I didn't have to suffer alone for something that wasn't my fault. It's other people's mess. It's only fair that those people's loved ones also be somehow aware of these events and compare them to their own picture of the world. Thank you for your attention. I'll go now, Cecilia said, and quickly left the coffee shop where she herself had made an appointment with Gela. Gela realized that the task was becoming very difficult. She would need a lot of strength just to psychologically digest what she had learned in the last few days. Whether she could influence her mother or father was still a matter of fiction. Gela was counseling a client when she saw an incoming call from her mother. She apologized and got distracted to answer. "Hi. No tardiness or other tricks today or my dad will be upset. We're meeting at 7:00 p.m. sharp at the loft of the Night Stars restaurant. Try to arrive early so the guests don't have to wait," Mom said, without much introduction. "Ok, Mom. I remember everything." Gela hung up the phone and went back to the customer. Cold and admonishing tone, rarely pronouncing her daughter's name. Not inclined to dialogue, but more inclined to monologue, is the typical line of behavior of the mother. She sometimes complains that her friend's daughter behaves quite differently with her mother. They talk on the phone for a long time, attend events together. The daughter tells her mother the details of her personal life and everything else in the spirit of such an apparent idyll. Gela then thought that she would also like that, but inside herself there is nothing to build such a relationship on. She always hopes that some changes will happen in her relationship with her parents, and everything will be the way she dreams about it all her childhood and all her conscious life. But instead, every time there are new reasons for discord, which are easily intensified against the background of chronic confrontation. Every attempt to get understanding from parents ends in disappointment. It usually starts as a planned family evening. Then the dialogue slowly turns into a monologue by the mother. Then either Gela or the father can't stand it and start putting forward their own monologues. It ends with everyone retiring to their rooms and Gela to her downtown apartment bought with her parents' money. But that's not the end of it. After such nice family evenings, a call will follow, a day or two later. Either the father or the mother calls for coffee or to his office. There they will ask to forget what happened, throw money, and go away. And the subject of disagreement is really significant. The daughter in whom the parents invested many years, who received a good foreign education and a prestigious profession, does not want to go to work in the company of neither her father nor her mother. She is obliged to fit into our social circle, wails the mother to her friends. "I have spent so many years developing my empire with blood and sweat. I can't trust an outsider with such a giant. I need my own man, and an heir at the same time. In my case, it's an heiress," father says occasionally. "Art, painting is fine, of course. But you understand, Gela, your parents need support. You're their only child. They've done everything for you. Now it's your turn to step up a little of your selfishness and go along with them. All the more reason for them to offer you nothing bad. Complete comfort and certainty. This is something that others can go their whole life and not come to," says Aunt Martha, with whom they have been close since childhood. But Gela has very different priorities. She graduated from business school in Europe, returned to her hometown, but felt no satisfaction. By the time she graduated, there was a line of recruiters behind her. She chose one of the companies without any details and started working there. The job came easily to her, but it didn't entice her. It didn't penetrate her soul. After a couple of years, Gela left the company, rented an office, and started consulting her clients. This too came easy to her. Now she can talk about financial independence. In her case, it was a reality that had come true, but even this did not bring much satisfaction. Despite the stable achievements, Gela's life did not become brightly colorful. Her own business also quickly turned into a routine. Brilliantly perform their work and get decent money for it. It is certainly wonderful, but those who have already achieved it know that it can also soon get boring. And those who have not yet achieved it, you can envy. Perhaps they live under the illusion that having achieved a certain level in the career, you can become happy and satisfied with life once and for all. Gela is often tired of her own dissatisfaction. This incomprehensible feeling of a plastic world around her often spills over into aggression and resentment towards Robert, her young man. "You are too strong and independent. And with a man should be simpler, pretend to be a fool where it is a stranger. Let him feel like the master of the situation, not like at the front. Such a girl he will want to carry in his arms, to turn over mountains for her, to kill a dragon and fulfill all her dreams. And the girl only needs to condescend to accept it. All, said the psychologist with heavy-rimmed glasses and a library counselor-style shirt. This ridiculous session happened a few months ago. No. This advice is conceptually wrong. Human beings are not equipped to appear worse than they are. Pretense and deceit cannot serve as a permanent foundation for a serious relationship. Why can't he feel like the master of the situation without my tricks? Why does anyone have to be the master of the situation? Is not it possible to organize a general wave on which there is no solitary throne and constant struggle for this throne? Why do you think I need someone to slay dragons for me? Why should I be carried in my arms if my soul rejoices in long walks? If it gives me energy and inspiration? Where did this idea of the whole female species being opportunistic come from? You just pretend to be this or that and let him dance to that tune. What kind of concept is that tune? What kind of concept is that? Gela answered and left the psychologist's office without waiting for an answer. She really felt better after that. She was surprised to find that her inner world was much more organized and interesting than all these mainstreams and information noise around her. True, it was unclear where this inner world was leading, and most importantly, when would it reach the point where one could finally experience what life was like by inner sensations? Strangely, all this thought ran through her head at the moment when she talked to her mother, hung up the phone, and walked a few steps from the balcony of the office to her desk. In the evening, another portion of the plastic world awaits her. Good manners with bad relationships, beautiful words without an emotional component, a picture of family idyll with complete confrontation of view. The evening atmosphere of the Night Stars restaurant was indeed luxurious. A violin playing quietly at the entrance, dimmed lights, and an interior of calm tones. Today, the entire room is rented by the Murphy family. Stan Murphy, the head of the family, is as always a little late. His wife arrives first to check in advance that the preparation is up to the level of the invited guests. Somewhere between the guests and Stan comes the family's only daughter, Gela Murphy. Gela Murphy was standing in traffic at the time, trying to guess what the occasion of the gathering was. Her mother had mentioned it, but she'd forgotten, because lately she can't hear her father or mother at all. They can talk, and Gela, in the meantime, thinks about how they got to such a globally deceptive life. If they lie to each other and to the public that they love each other, could it be that their daughters are also lying to her, that they love and care for her? Could it be that they actually have very different feelings for their naughty and ungrateful daughter than love and care? Gela realizes that this is the silliest thought, but children are usually rich in the silliest thoughts about their parents. "Why aren't you in a dress?" Her mother pretended to kiss Gela, but hissed under her ear. "Because I'm wearing jeans." The daughter didn't hide her position in a whisper and said it out loud, then turned toward the guests, looked through them at her reflection in the large mirror on the restaurant wall, and waved her hand as if to greet someone sitting there. The guests didn't realize which one of them was greeted by the daughter of the evening's hosts, so some of them waved back just in case. A couple hours later, the clinking of glasses was diluted by small talk. The ladies with a fake smile were looking at the people around them and asking questions with double meanings, inserting remarks in favor of their superiority on a particular question. "Isabella, you still look great for your age. You gotta hand it to Stan. Eastern wisdom says that the woman is the flower in the garden and the man the gardener. The more care the gardener gives, the more beautiful his flowers," said the woman Gela occasionally sees at these social gatherings of her parents. She has never inquired who it is, so she doesn't know her name or what her parents have in common with this man. Isabella and Stan looked at each other and smiled sincerely, as if everything said was true. This is where Gela decided to keep up with the small talk. "Yes, my mother and father are great role models for me. I look at them and want to have exactly the same relationship, but it's still difficult. But as far as my parents' situation is concerned, they are doing really well. Both of them have an incentive to keep in shape. Right, Dad? She looked at her father. Dad didn't quite know what she was talking about, so he didn't say anything. And Mom is also supported by her business. She loves it, and she devotes herself entirely to her studio. There she even has much more idyll and harmony than within the family. There are witnesses who won't let me lie. Right, Mom? Now she looked at her mother. The mother, too, didn't understand what this was all about. But she took it as just another incomprehensible adolescent babble from her grown-up daughter. Kella is such a sweetheart. She has her father's mind, and her aristocratic features echo Isabella's. Let's hope to see an equally worthy candidate for her companion soon. I think there is no shortage of applicants, but Gela will be able to choose for you a worthy member of the family, continued the strange lady from her parents' circle of communication. Yes, if she had listened to the advice of her parents and accepted her deserved right to our business empire, then we would have no more questions, for the daughter Isabella once again could not resist her idea. Then the guests intercepted her and began colorfully discussing the Murphy family's long road to its current position, the family's standing in the public eye, the brilliant prospects of Stan's company, his unshakable influence on the political environment, and all the rest of it. Gela listened to each of them in silence, and suddenly a thought struck her. She was old enough to express herself openly. She is, after all, completely independent of these people, so she can't hide from a direct confrontation of opinion. Why not try to probe new horizons? No, I don't agree with any of you. I have my own vision regarding my life and my realization. True, I have not yet found the business that fully reflects my essence, my vocation, if to put it in the language of esotericism and other nonsense of modernity. But so far, I do not want to lie to myself and cling to false goals. Therefore, I do not claim to manage the business of neither my father nor my mother. It's the honest thing to do. And honesty with oneself is above all, said Gela, and closed her eyes so as not to see her mother's gesture, which requires her to stop this conversation immediately. The guests fell silent at this surprise. Apparently, their children do not cross them ever. On the contrary, they strive to get as much as possible out of what their parents have built. If those disagree, they demand and take offense. That's an even better scenario. The worst is when your child is so disfigured from the excess of benefits and from the lack of simple parental attention that by the age of jealous already unsuccessfully rehabilitated in the best European drug clinics. So these people can hide their attitude towards Gela's position deeper. What do you want to do, Gela? Maybe you've had an interest in something since you were a kid. For example, our Christy has always loved decorating dolls. She graduated as a designer last year, and now she is promoting her own clothing brand. She recently opened a showroom. You can go to her and see how the realization of dreams happens, said another unfamiliar guest. Thank you. The fashion industry doesn't interest me. And what I've wanted since I was a kid was my parents' attention. But then I hoped that I would get it by reaching some heights in adulthood. It turned out to be an illusion. Instead of parental attention and long-awaited harmony within my family, I get something else. For example, my dad will soon fly on a trip to exotic countries. My mom at this time will be day and night promoting her studio, giving herself entirely to her business, especially producing. And I, instead of quietly doing my life, will be thinking all the time about what awaits our family in the future. Therefore, for me, realization and children's desires lie on two different planes. Gela gave another audacity. She works very hard. She must be tired. Gela, you can go home and rest, said the father. Gela did not look in her mother's direction. She silently stood up. said good night to everyone, thanked them for their warm company, and left the restaurant. For the next few days, she expected an angry call from her mother, but it never came. Her father called. He asked her to have coffee somewhere. Gela did not think over the scenario of the upcoming dialogue, just set a place and arrived on time. Gela knew what the conversation would be about. She had been setting herself up all evening on how she would tell her father about the recent secret that had come to her attention, that her mother wasn't particularly eager to mend their family relationship either, and was busy with other things. She would tell her father that she had missed the feeling of a strong family all her life, and that it was now very much interfering with her life. She was going to put the question as a question. It was time for them to sort out their relationship and fix it. The other option is not acceptable to her. After that, she asked herself 100 times, why should her parents live the way she wanted? Maybe it's her problem that she wants some kind of fairy tale family idyll. Maybe it's just her fantasy. But she didn't want to accept that everyone is free to live the way he likes. She has a different opinion. If you have people close to you, you can't just hammer away at their state of mind. Close people are closely connected on a psychological, mental, and spiritual level. One greatly influences the other. The older one molds the younger one passes that mold on to his children. From this point of view, it makes sense for people to be interested in how their loved ones feel. God gifted people with their significant others because he knew they would need close, warm relationships. Warm family relationships are the canvas on which children in the future will paint their picture of the world. If this picture of the world lacks love and understanding, such children usually try a lot, get hurt, but will never be able to paint their picture of the world where they could be realized. From this point of view, Gela needs her parents to establish relationships. And there's no other point of view. Daughter, what's wrong with you? What's the problem at work? Why did you behave so rudely in the restaurant, eh? Asked the father. I've never had any problems at work, Father. It's even largely thanks to you. So please don't worry about my activities from now on. It's a background factor in life. There are other priorities, said Gela. What are these other factors? Tell me. Father moved closer to the table, thus showing his interest. Last week, Dad, I went to a place and saw you with another woman. Tell me, are you and Mom over, or is there still hope? Gela asked bluntly. Dad leaned back again and propped his chin up with one hand. He sat thoughtful for a while and then said, Men's world. It's like that, whether women like it or not. But it happens in life. Believe me, I've tried many times before to patch things up with your mother, but all in vain. The more you listen to her, the more she wants power. And that woman, it's nothing serious with her. I have you. I always look out for my family, no matter what they are. Don't bother your mother with all this talk. I suppose she knows. But you won't divorce, so you don't have to divide the property, will you? Gela asked. Not only for that reason, we just don't see any reason for it, said the father, looking at his daughter with wide-open eyes. So you're okay with a relationship that seems to be there, but it's not really there. Are you ready to tolerate it all your life, just to avoid certain formalities? No, don't make it so simple. It's not that simple. My mother and I have a common path, a common past, a lot of good times, a common circle of friends. It's just that over time, the romance and tenderness fade, and we're no longer green teenagers to be so enamored with each other. We just have a well-established, quiet relationship where everyone has their own private zone. Everyone has their own freedom. And then, you know your mother. She's a bit of a peculiar woman. It's hard to please her. Father opened his eyes wide again. You're just making excuses for not loving each other for a long time. Gela was filled with emotion. You always blame your mother, but remember all my childhood, I remember how you abused her. You wouldn't come home for days at a time. Mom would sit with me. You'd blame her for every penny you brought home. That's why she decided to start her own business. I suppose she thought it would be better. Actually, it was worse. You lost each other completely, but you stayed close. I was the one who suffered in the end. Gella's voice trembled. A lump came up in her throat. She felt like she was going to cry all over the room. "Don't you dare say such things, Father," he said louder. "We may not have an ideal relationship, but we gave you the best of everything possible. An elite school, a personal driver, nannies, a prestigious university, your own apartment in the center of Paris. No worries about personal expenses. Travel, cars, penthouse, where you live now. You think it all fell out of the sky? No, daughter. This is what millions of people your age dream of. They would do anything to touch such a life, to be photographed against the backdrop of all this and show it to the whole world as a source of pride. And you, ungrateful, still can't realize that all this actually belongs to you. All you have to do is be willing and join your father's business. Do I have to start another family on the side and raise other children to have my own heir? My father spoke loudly enough. Ah, another family you want? That's where you should have started, Dad. Not messing with your mother's head for the rest of your life. Don't worry about me, I'll deal with my childhood traumas somehow. The world is full of psychologists. They'll figure something out. And you and your mother continue to cherish your selfishness and live secret lives." Gella was already sobbing almost in her voice. At that moment, a waitress came to their table and asked, "Sorry, the dish from your order is not served today, turns out to be for technical reasons. We apologize. Let me help you to choose something similar from Venetian cuisine," said the girl in a thin voice and unfolded the menu in front of Gella. Gella closed the menu with a sharp movement of her hand and threw it on the floor. "No, no. Leave me alone with your menu." Gella shouted to the whole room, pulled some bills out of her purse, and threw them in the girl's face. "You don't need to bill this stranger for my coffee." She was just about to get up and leave the table when her father grabbed a bunch of keys lying on the table. "Come to your senses, Gella. Don't embarrass us in public. And don't make your mother nervous. Then you will take the keys to the car," and the apartment father held the bundle past his ears and shook the keys. Then turned to the dazed waitress and said, "Young lady, what's your name?" "Well, come closer, Elizabeth, then." "Elizabeth, I suppose you're a student?" Stan asked the waitress. "Yes," replied the confused waitress. "Now you don't have to carry trays for louts like my daughter. Consider all your problems solved. Here are the keys to the car. Here are the keys to the apartment I bought for her. And my daughter will be punished until she comes to her senses. Elizabeth, accept the gift." In all seriousness, Stan put the bunch of keys on the edge of the table. The girl looked at her father, at her daughter, and at the customers, who turned their heads and watched the family drama with fascination. Someone even managed to turn on a camera and videotape everything that was happening. Gella realized that there was no point in continuing the conversation. "That's fine. Take everything. I'll have my own." With quick steps, she left the hall. The waitress apologized to Stan. He nodded that everything was fine and asked for the bill. But instead of the bill, the waitress Elizabeth brought the change from the money Gella had thrown in her face. Father laughed and said, "Keep it, Elizabeth. It's your tip. And be a good daughter for your parents," said, and headed for the exit, rubbing a bunch of keys in his hands. It's a dark night and a clear sky. Stars are visible in the sky, small and large. The sea splashes with small waves. The waves beat the foot of a tall stone fence, behind which you can see the ancient roof of a tall house with no corners. The house is built of large stone blocks. Such were built a couple centuries ago for noble families. Due to the durability of such structures, many such castles have survived in good condition, becoming antique assets and a source of pride for the rich people of today. According to architects, these houses are eternal. It is impossible to destroy them unless a special powerful technique is invented for this purpose. Inside this house runs a little girl in a pink dress. Strange, it's very cold inside stone houses, but this girl is wearing one light dress. Her hair is loose. She runs to one and another mirror in the house, trying with her little hands to gather her hair and put on a pretty bow like her friends she usually plays with. But she doesn't succeed. She gets all shaggy. She's very upset about it, but the girl doesn't give up. And so it goes on all night. The next day the girl goes outside to play with her friends. They are all with beautifully combed hair which is painted with flowers, who has cute hairpins, who has bows. Only one girl with shaggy hair, which make her unattractive and deprive her of charm, because of the lack of a beautiful hairstyle. This girl will not be able to engage in the game of other girls. She, frowning, sits in the corner and looks at the other girls spitefully. And so the day goes on. When all the girls are about to go home, the shaggy one stops each of them and asks, "How did you manage to make such a beautiful hairstyle?" One by one the girls answer her, "You ask your mom. My mommy braided my braids for me. My mommy bought me these new hairpins and she pinned them on me herself. My mommy loves my hair, so she brushes it herself every day." The voices sounded almost like a chorus. The shaggy girl seemed to have realized an important secret. She's running home. The lights are already on in the stone house, but inside the house is completely silent and empty. The girl runs through the rooms and looks for her mother. She is nowhere to be found. The girl runs to the mirror again and tries to do something with her hair, but nothing works. Through her tears and snot, she opens another door in the house and sees her mother and father standing at the window. The girl enters the room, but they don't seem to notice her. The mother and father are discussing something loudly among themselves and do not notice how the daughter entered. The girl sees a large mirror in the corner of the room. She went to the mirror and sat down in front of it. She was sure that her mother was about to finish her conversation with her father and come to her. The girl has already prepared combs and looks in the mirror, but for some reason the girl herself is not reflected there, and there is a reflection of only her mother and father. The girl remembers a terrible fairy tale where it is said that only the dead are not reflected in the mirror. She is dead. She starts panicking and screaming, "I'm dead, I'm gone. Mommy, look at me, Mommy, Daddy. Am I alive or am I dead?" At that moment, a nurse enters the hospital room, approaches Gela, checks the vitals of all the machines keeping her alive, then gently touches Isabella's shoulder and says, "Your daughter is resting." What she's saying is a consequence of the anesthesia. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with it. You should go home and rest too. Tomorrow morning, come back. The mother carefully gets up from the chair and follows the nurse out. "Doctor, can't I stay here? What if I need something for Gela during the night? I won't be myself at home anyway. Let me stay," Isabella asks the doctor. "If you want, you can stay. But you mustn't disturb the patient with your emotions. Remember, she can hear and see everything, even if she's unconscious. If you start shedding tears now, you'll only complicate your daughter's situation," says the doctor in a whisper. "I hear you, doctor." "I'll be quiet." Isabella squats on a chair in the hospital foyer and pulls out her smartphone to distract herself and pass the time. Today is Gela's 8th day at the clinic. Thanks to the doctor's efforts, she regained consciousness a couple days ago. Today, she was allowed to get out of bed and walk around the hall, accompanied by a nurse. Her mother has been sitting by her side and hasn't left much, except for the occasional trip home. "Daughter, are you okay? Scared us. How are you feeling? Where's Daddy?" Daddy went to negotiate new contracts with African countries, but he's in a hurry to get back. He'll be back in a couple of days. "Uganda? Exotic countries?" Gela asked in a clearer voice. "I don't know the details. He'll tell me when he arrives. In the meantime, let's you and I get up and walk around a bit. Your back must be stiff already." "Mom, how did I get here? I thought I was dead." You hit a tree, sweetheart. But the doctors say we were very lucky. The impact wasn't severe. The car went into the ditch, and you fell out of it onto the curb. Passers-by found you and brought you here. Where were you going so fast? I could have lost you. My mother wept. I don't remember, Ma. I remember renting a car. I remember wanting to go to the woods and sit in the quiet and think. Everything was fine. Then I remember an erratic driver in the oncoming lane. I wanted to dodge him and failed to keep up with his speed. Then I heard a loud noise, and then there was complete silence for me. Gela took cautious steps in the hospital hallway. Her whole body ached. It felt like her whole body had been spun in the centrifuge of a washing machine and thrown back out again. After walking a few steps, she felt an incredible heaviness in her body. Her head began to spin, and a fever rose throughout her body. She decided not to walk any further and asked the nurse to walk her back to her hospital bed. In the evening, her mother carefully fed her from a spoon. After a hearty dinner, Gela felt sleepy again, even though she had woken up recently. Mom, I'm so sleepy now. Is this permanent? She decided to cheer herself up on purpose. It's just a lot of medication they're putting you on. Sedatives, too. You have a head injury, but it's minor, the doctor said, but it'll go away soon. If you're sleepy, you can sleep. Your body will recover faster. Then I'll wait for my evening shots and go running to my stone house to look for you. And you go home, rest too, come back tomorrow night. What's stone house, Gela? Or am I imagining it? Mother asked. I built my stone house, and now I am wandering around in it. Go on, Mom, Gela said, and turned her head away from the wall. The vision continues in the usual scenario. Tangled hair on the girl, puffy eyes from crying, beautiful and satisfied friends. There is no change in the picture of Gela's childhood world. The same struggle for her father and mother's attention. The same indifference in return. Tears of resentment that gradually turn into screaming hysterics. And you're 26, Gela. Why are you so entangled in childhood traumas, she thinks. It's because you're repeating their relationship pattern. You haven't met a normal guy, because you don't know what a normal, loving relationship feels like. Instead, you hang out with people who don't care about you. By the way, Robert only called twice and never showed up at the hospital. That's the kind of guy you usually have. If things were different when you were a kid, would they be different now? That's my big question. If you saw, felt from the inside what warm and sincere relationships are like, you would be able to repeat them in your life. But as it is, you're just going by. Inertia, getting involved with men on principles you don't know. One of them is Robert, who tenses up at your slightest attention. At your requests and desires, Gela muttered, almost falling asleep. The nurse thought she had a fever and gave her an extra shot. Despite the doctor's fears and her parents' worries, Gela recovered quickly. People who are strong in spirit are protected and supported by special forces. So write the sacred treatises. They also write that people who undergo important spiritual tests are protected and supported. Gela decided to break up with Robert, even though there wasn't much to hang on to there anyway. She simply wrote him a letter of gratitude to simplify the weaning process for her psyche. He hadn't pushed for a truce or a fresh start. Ever since he found out that the girl had a disagreement with her parents and didn't want to inherit their business, he had become indifferent to her. Gela could feel it. It made her feel doubly hurt. Therefore, the parting was a matter of time. Having returned after a long absence, Gela had put her company affairs in order in a few days. Nothing catastrophic had happened during her absence. She had formed this small team on her own, personally involved in the adaptation of each of them. She never encouraged vertical hierarchy in corporate relations. This is when the manager considers himself the most important and owes no one anything, and the employees owe him everything. Gela considered every employee a partner. Maybe that's why she never had her own separate office, a premium chair and other attributes of selectiveness. She looked up to her father and did the opposite, which is why she has such complete authenticity with her team. Had a father and mother unlike her, can never leave their business for long, because they are sure something is bound to happen in their absence, and no one will solve the problem except the manager. They are also always in a hurry because they need to control the whole process, otherwise problems cannot be avoided. Gela has long ago come to terms with this, but in her business she has built everything differently, and she likes it very much. She would like to share her managerial experience with her parents, but they are not interested. The mother has been trying to be as close to her daughter as possible all this time. Her father had returned from a business trip to exotic countries and acted as if that was the way it was. He visited Gela several times, but she was as cold to him as ever. The first time he arrived at the hospital, Gela was tired and sleepy from the copious amounts of treatments and shots. She only remembers her father sticking his hand under her pillow as he left. The next day, she found her keychain there. Now all the agony of rehabilitation is in the past. She has recovered without consequences. But the visions that had first caught up with her in the hospital were still recurring. Gela realized she couldn't leave the matter as it was. She had to do something. After much thought, an idea came to her and she decided to act on it. But she was unsure if it would be successful. "Hello, I'm looking for Emma. Do you have a master? Can I meet her?" said Gela in the foyer of the stylized barbershop for men. "Yes, we do. She's serving a customer right now, so please wait a while. Please take a seat in the waiting area or go to the minibar. Can I get you anything to drink?" The receptionist of the upscale barbershop was kind to the customers. "No, I'm fine. Thank you." Emma came over after a while. Gela didn't drag out the conversation with her, but gestured an invitation to go outside. Then they got into her car. Emma walked with a slight irritation and incomprehension. It often happens to her. Jealous companions of her regular clients often come to her with claims and suspicions about intimate relations with their husband. "You're Emma, I take it." Gela looked carefully at the woman beside her. She was a little older than Gela, maybe even the same age, but Emma looked older than her age because of her rustic appearance. Bright red lipstick on her lips, overly provocative clothes, and plenty of jewelry around her neck and on her arms. "Yes, I'm Emma. What's this about? Who are you?" Barbara Emma asked. "I'm Murphy's daughter," Gela said, not taking her eyes off Emma. She looked a little embarrassed, but tried not to show it. "You don't have to say anything. You have to listen." Gela interrupted her attempt to say something. "I know about you and your father. You don't have to deny it. My mother knows about you too. Tell me, why do you hide and conceal your relationship with him? There's no secrets left, is there?" Gela continued. Barbara seemed to have toned down her emotions a bit. But it was getting harder and harder for her to cover her petty fear and excitement in front of this charismatic girl. How much she resembled her father, not only in appearance, but also in the manner of conversation, the admonishing tone, and the slight arrogance in his eyes. "Now, Emma, my advice to you. A father needs more children, preferably a son. But let it be within the confines of an official marriage to my father, not incognito. The Murphy family shouldn't have to live hidden from the public. I'll talk to my father about their divorce from my mother. You try to act too," Gela said. "Are you kidding me or what?" Emma struggled. "Has anyone asked me if I need all this? I don't think your father is likely to leave the family, and I've never had any such intention." Emma continued to talk incoherently, but at the same time, she thought about how she would behave if she had to make such a choice. "Interesting approach," said Gela. "Sleeping with a man and not wanting to be with him. And I'm dead serious. If you don't want to be with a man, that's fine. You should have been more decisive. Wait, why are you doing this? Did your mother send you to check up on me? You want to find out what I'm up to and make a case against me?" There's a slight tremor in Emma's voice. "You want honesty? I'm sure you know that Dad has wanted me to run his company for a long time. I think it's a wise decision, especially since I'm mature as a professional. It's time for Dad to take a vacation, and his health has been failing lately. He needs rest and good care. I think you, as a loving woman, will do it perfectly." Loving woman left from Gela thoughtful. She was clearly not delighted by such a proposal. Gela had met with several psychologists lately. Most of them leaned in one direction. The parents themselves are able to deal with their relationships and problems, and Gela should think more about her life. As a rule, after such sessions, this specialist was crossed off Gela's list. She realized that shifting the focus of attention, willpower, and beliefs to get away from the problem is not the way out. It's a way to protest a part of herself. This approach prolongs the life of the actual problem. A person who avoids direct confrontation with conflicts runs the risk of remaining in an infantile position for a long time. The adult generation tends to often criticize young people for such a direct approach to all life issues. But some people, becoming adults, begin to realize that the avoidance of cardinal solutions only strengthens the problem, allows it to grow deeper into a person's life. You don't have to go far for examples. Gela's parents, for example. They must have had a breakdown in their relationship a long time ago. Instead of inviting each other to dialogue and looking for a solution, they decided to hide their pain points. Over time, that closed chest became a source of pain. Heartache requires attention, the attention of the person himself. But if a person could not solve the problem at an early stage, they are much less likely to solve it at a later stage. The unspoken has a property to change its appearance and turn into other concepts of the inner world. So, resentment to each other now both look like hopelessness and loneliness in the relationship. If we leave everything as it is, then one day mother and father will find out about each other's parallel realities, and then the consequences for both of them will be enormous. That was Gela's thinking. Gela had always had trouble navigating unfamiliar terrain. That's why she spent quite a lot of time looking for a new business center in one of the bedroom districts. Mark, her longtime friend whom they had met at a formal event, had recently opened a new office here. When the man had scheduled a meeting here, Gela hadn't objected. Mark's schedule is so unpredictable that if he asked him to come to a neutral location, she might not be able to make it. The length of court hearings Mark attends is impossible to predict. Gela finally found the business center, passed the security check, and took the elevator to the 17th floor. When the elevator doors opened, Mark was already waiting for her in the hallway. They shared a friendly hug and headed to Mark's new office. "This is my third office. The other two are where my staff sees my regular clients. We do all sorts of business there that lasts forever and everything. This is where I invite the VIPs." One of them, by the way, wasn't even late. Mark put his arm around Gela's shoulder and led her into his office. At the entrance to the office, he looked back at the secretary and said, "Angelica, I'm not here that long until I say myself that I'm in place and available. Record the calls. Don't let anyone into the office. I have a business date." The door slammed shut. The interior of the office is not unlike a classic workplace. "How do you like my space?" Mark looked at Gela enigmatically. "Only impressive is the complexity of the driveways. I think your VIPs will appreciate that." "It's just an office. I have one just like it," Gela said. "That's why I've always respected you for your honesty and sincerity. You're right. An office is an office, so we have no business being here. Now it's better to teleport somewhere exotic," said Mark and went to the wall. A plain wall with a molding of geometric shapes does not give away any signs of a hiding place. But there it was. Mark pressed the button for the wall lamp, and a crack appeared near the wall. A few seconds later, the crack was the width of a standard door. "You are as usual in your repertoire of inventions," laughed Gela. "This is my restroom," said Mark. Gela saw a spacious room decorated in the Japanese style. There was no furniture. There was a wooden futon on the floor with a small reed table on it. The floor was covered with sakura mats. On the edges of the futon were beautiful metal candlesticks. Mark lit them, and the room was filled with a soft scent of incense. You should take off your shoes now and sit on the futon with your feet squarely on the ground. I know how to behave in a Japanese interior. Your island is fantastic. Gela was already sitting on the hard surface of the futon. Mark, I'm here on business, and it's serious business. For your sake, at least too serious business. Gela Mark sat opposite. They laughed a lot, remembered the cases on which they consulted each other, gossiped about their outcome and about the outcome of the fate of the persons involved in these cases. Usually they were quite prominent people, like Gela's father. After sitting for almost 3 hours, Gela left Mark in a high mood. She carefully entered the answers to her questions into a notebook on her phone so she could review and learn some things later. Gela knew Mark as an up-and-coming attorney. Today she had seen with her own eyes that he was also a successful one, and as a person he was on the level. Gela was very impressed with his specially equipped recreation room. Every active person needs such an island to be alone with himself regularly, to regain his strength and get inspiration. Gela decided that in the near future she will have such a secret island in her office. But the style and decoration is a real field for creativity, which she will take care of later. Finding Billy for Gela wasn't difficult. In the age of social media, and people themselves are eager to show off the details of their personal lives, people have few questions for each other. It's enough to scour a few social media sites to gather information about any person. Gela realized that it would be much more difficult to bring a man to a frank conversation with a direct approach. So she had to go for an unpleasant stratagem. There was simply no other option she could think of. She'd found Billy's profile a month ago and texted him first. Gela didn't bother creating a false profile. No one could tell from her page whose daughter she was or what she did anyway. She has only professional topics and impersonal neutral photos on her page. In the course of correspondence, she learned that Billy usually lies to girls online, that he is single. He also keeps silent about the presence of a mistress much older than himself. In addition, he has a pronounced ageism when a person believes that age is an important determinant of some other qualities of a person. Gela didn't have to make much effort to get Billy's producer to write that all women over 35 are his mothers. The child himself, by the way, according to his version online, is 38. According to Cecilia's 45. Gela was uncomfortable with each message. But that's what the plan required now. When Billy began to hint about his loneliness, his craving for adventure and other childish behavior, Gela could hardly stand her negative emotions toward the man. It didn't take long for the expected proposal to arrive. Billy began to insist on a meeting. Gela agreed. He set up a meeting in a country pub. Gela did not go against herself and moved the meeting place to one of her favorite restaurants. She knew for sure that the conversation with this unpleasant man would not last long, and afterwards she could sit with a glass of wine with a sense of accomplishment. Billy arrived late. When a middle-aged man tries to appear younger, he chooses to dress in a teenage style. Psychological complexes over the years leave their imprints more and more vividly on a person's face. Depending on the adequacy of self-perception, a person either gains charisma over the years or becomes unsightly, not harmonious. In the second case, the surrounding people have contradictory impressions of a person's personality. All these phenomena were embodied in the worst way in this Billy, and charisma acquired over the years. This is about Gela's mother and father, though they did not realize these insides at that moment, but they were present in her in the form of vague sensation. Billy, there's no use in denying it. I've hired a detective, and I have concrete evidence that you are having an affair with my mother. With Isabella Murphy, said Gela in a calm tone. This can't go on like this indefinitely. You and I both realize that love feelings locked up only grow stronger. You've been hiding your relationship for quite some time. I think your emotions are at a peak to burst out and reclaim your right to legally exist. Do you understand me? But the absurd man clearly didn't understand what Gela was talking about or what he was getting at. You, as a true gentleman, should take responsibility for the woman you love. My parents have agreed on a divorce, so my mom will soon be a free girl. It's time for you to take a step towards your destiny. Yes, I know you have a family and children, but I assume when you went for a private affair with your boss, you analyzed all these factors and there was logic in your actions. Now it's time to take it to its logical conclusion. My mother has wanted me to run her studio for a long time. I'm ripe for the job. I'll soon take over all her responsibilities. And Mom needs peace, care, and nurturing. As a loving man, I think you can handle that. Okay, ho, wahoo, wah. What are we talking about? Are you suggesting that I leave my family and marry your mother? I mean, what makes you think I'm in a relationship with her? It's all lies. And don't threaten me with your detectives. I'm not a kid. I have nothing with your mother and I never had nothing with her. Why not? She's a very attractive woman and she's got all kinds of goodies at her fingertips. Why not, Billy? Because she's old enough to be my mother. I've always avoided conflict at work. I've had to keep my job, so I may have complimented her a couple times, but that's about it. I know whose wife she is, and it never occurred to me to have an affair with her. The words sounded like an excuse. I see. You can't even face the facts. I have them. If your spouse sees them, they'll be good enough for a divorce suit. And yes, you do remember that the apartment you live in with your family remains entirely with your wife when you divide the property, right? Because you got married later than her parents bought the apartment. What do you want from me? I don't know what you're getting at. Billy was almost blushing with emotion. I need clarity in your relationship with my mother. You either write a letter of resignation and go away, or I will implement my decision. In the end, you'll still have to write a letter of resignation, but it will be mixed with divorce proceedings, finding an apartment to rent and finding a new job, and under terrible stress. It's your choice. I'll leave, no problem. I've been invited to other companies many times and I've turned them down. Now, I'm not going to stick with this place where they want to smear me. You can give this to your mother as my decision, Billy said, getting ready to leave. No, Billy, I'm not passing anything on. You'll do it yourself, said Gela. Deal? The odd man left without saying goodbye. Gela then actually ordered herself a glass of wine and had a long chat on the phone with Mark. When she left the restaurant, the time was approaching midnight. She entrusted the security guard with her car and went for a walk around the city at night. The chilly air of a winter night does nothing to stop the people of this city from staying active 24 hours a day. Small groups of young people merrily walking somewhere. On the bridge, a couple in love, warming their hands to each other. Families with children ride by the side of the road. Shopping centers and boutiques were just about to lower their curtains, but visitors to these establishments were in no hurry to leave. Gela was walking down the lighted sidewalk when a stately woman of advanced years stepped out of the corner of an old building. She was walking toward Gela, although they didn't know each other. One of them knew for sure that they were walking towards each other. When the distance was a few steps, the statuesque woman said, "My dear girl, I was just walking down this sidewalk and dropped my handkerchief. Would you be kind enough to retrieve it? It's right at your feet." Gela looked at the ground and indeed saw a downy handkerchief lying right at her feet. Strange, a few steps back she hadn't noticed it. Nor had she noticed this woman who was just walking down this sidewalk. There aren't many people on this sidewalk anymore. It's light. Gela isn't drunk enough to be confused. She took out a handkerchief, shook off the snow, made a triangle out of it, and placed it on the shoulders of the statuesque woman. The statuesque woman smiled and said, "All as I imagined her to be," she said, and stroked Gela's hair. Gela did not hear her words, but asked, "Can I walk you out? It's late. There are slippery paths. You should be careful." "Yes, it would be a good idea to walk me." "In fact, that's what I came for," said a stately woman of advanced years. When Gela took the woman's forearm, she felt a kind of coldness coming from her. "It's late. I won't keep you too long. I'll keep it short and to the point. But don't be frightened, okay?" The old woman looked at Gela Gela noticed how familiar her eyes and face were. She also noticed the woman's strong resemblance to her father. Gela had not been inclined to feel fear since childhood, so she remained calm. "You intrigued me," said Gela, cautiously looking at the woman. "Just don't ask too many questions. What I want to tell you is this. You will soon meet some obstacles in your path. They will not be objective. They will not be objective. They will be in the form of your inner doubts. Just don't give in to them, because I know for a fact that you are on the right path. I am very impressed that you trust only your inner voice and follow it with confidence. It's your most trusted guide." "Grandma, is that you?" Gela interrupted the stately woman. "Sure, we might be mistaken for inadequate." Grandma put her index finger to her lips and stroked Gela's head again. "Yes, Gelochka, it's me, your grandmother. I told you in my lifetime that people with strong intuition will always occupy a separate position in the universe, that they will be able to do things that many others do not dare to do. I look at you lately, and I can't get enough of you. Your attentiveness to your surroundings, your concern for the fate of your parents. At the same time, you clearly follow the voice of your heart. I had fun watching those psychologists of yours, how you blew their advice to smithereens. None of them were able to concretely lay out for you the picture that you have every right to change the outside world, only according to the promptings of your inner voice. Instead, they advise you to close yourself off from everything and dwell on yourself." Grandma laughed her soft laugh, as was characteristic of her when she was alive. "And how are you? You promised to dream about me at night, but then you disappeared. I've been waiting for you in my dreams for over 20 years. You dreamt about me in the beginning and you dreamed about me afterwards. You were just studying a lot, living in Paris, getting a lot of impressions from life, so you forgot our night conversations. But you forgot only our meetings, and what I conveyed to you through them settled down inside you. I can see that." Grandmother again patted Gela's hair. "How tall you have become. I can hardly reach your hair." They both laughed. "And what do you think? I should have stayed out of my parents' life. Should I have accepted their offer to continue their business and given up on finding myself? Should I really reconsider my views on men and settle for what sails in on its own?" Gela laughed as she said the last words. "Grandma did too. Who's telling you all this stuff? Invite that one over for coffee and splash it on his face while it's hot again." Laughed. "After comparing the obvious and the hidden in different worlds, here's what I realized. You people have a certain image of your future. But you, when you build this image as young children, you do not take it from the inner world, but from the outer one. In the external world, you are broadcast movies. Other people tell you different stories. You read books which are written without looking at the image being formed, but with the purpose of releasing your own repressed feelings. From this, Olivier, the images of your future are formed. Your mother and father are no exception to this. In their case, there are also hidden factors. I told you about them before. It is the image of a small child and an adult who command you from the very depths of your soul. Your parents have problems with the image of the inner adult more often. Maybe that's my fault too, I don't know. But I do know that you don't have a problem with it. You are not even 30 years old, but you are already consciously and quite confidently walking through life in harmony with the image of the adult inside you. Why did I choose to support you today? Because I know that victory will be for you in this difficult path. Just do not turn back. Stand on your own. Your parents are children at heart. You're acting like an adult to them now. That's why they won't find anything to say against you. Do you understand?" Grandmother looked at Gela again with smiling eyes. Gela couldn't take her eyes off her face. My God, what a woman she was in her lifetime. The daughter of a dynasty of academicians, a learned psychoanalyst who gave her revolutionary talks in the most leading countries. She lived a long life, remaining in great shape and cheerful spirits to the end of her days. It is true that Gela was able to receive very little attention from her. She was only 3 years old when her grandmother left this world with a smile on her face. But she managed to infuse into the unconsciousness of her granddaughter some correct images, which then could not be broken by parental coldness, youthful disappointments, and other trials of life. Gela, in any situation, vaguely understood what she should do, where to be, and to whom to say what. She didn't think much about the consequences of her decisions, pleasant as they were. As a rule, these decisions were the most correct. This became clear only after a while. Gela remembers such a picture. She sits next to her grandmother. She brushes her hair and tells some beautiful story about the connection of people in some parallel worlds. Then she says that she and Gela will have to part for a while, but she will keep an eye on her and come to her aid as needed. Then there is a knock on the door, and the father comes to fetch Gela. Grandma hands the girl into her father's arms, kisses her on the forehead, and whispers in her ear that she should not forget that the separation is temporary. As it later turned out, this was the last time the grandmother met her granddaughter. The next time Gela saw her grandmother lying in a coffin. Grandma was dressed in her favorite blue dress, and a white shawl was tied on her head. The grandmother had such a peaceful face that the little granddaughter thought she was about to open her eyes and get up from her seat. Gela did not feel like crying at all. She was sure in her little heart that grandmother was with her forever, and this separation was formal. Perhaps grandmother was now operating on terms from the deep psychology that had been her life's work. But Gela understood her language perfectly, all thanks to the attitudes her grandmother had managed to instill in her granddaughter during her lifetime. When they reached the back alley, Grandma said she had to go. Gela tried to hug her grandmother, but she pushed her palm away slightly and brought her index finger to her lips again. Shoo, you and I are from different dimensions. Emotions can hurt you. You are my smart girl. I know, stay smart, and further said Grandma and waved her hand. Gela waved back and looked back to realize how far she had gotten from the sidewalk leading to her house. Turns out she was still standing on it. She hadn't gone anywhere. When she looked ahead, she didn't see her grandmother in front of her. She wasn't in the distance or around the corner, even though only a couple seconds had passed. She's in her repertoire, thought Gela with a smile, and headed home. Over the next week, Gela waited for angry calls from her parents. But there were none. In that time, she managed to sign a couple of new outsourcing contracts, meet Mark for dinner, buy a book on esotericism, and put it on the shelf. She thought that a person should constantly be reading, evolving, and getting new information from the outside. It was only one step away from an epiphany for her to realize that knowledge at some point begins to beg outward, and a person would have to start sharing it instead of hoarding it. The other day, when she was walking through the artist's alley, she saw some interesting paintings. She had an urge to buy some, but there was no way she was going back to the alley again. While she was sitting in the office waiting to meet a client, she decided to draw on paper. After a while, the client called and informed her that the meeting was canceled. Gela was not upset. On the contrary, she liked this turn of events. She took out a larger paper and began to draw more and more motifs. A few hours later, she had several sketches in a style unknown to her, a combination of ink pen and pencil, flowing lines that went beyond the space, different geometric figures, in the space of which you can see the outlines of new figures. She liked her drawings. At the same time, she felt a mental uplift. All thoughts seemed to fly away somewhere. The idea of hurry disappeared. In the soul reigned complete silence and peace. I should draw more often, she thought to herself. At the next session, she already had a ready idea: to draw a girl with shaggy hair who keeps waiting for her hair to be brushed. Despite her lack of skill, she succeeded. That same evening, the girl with shaggy hair appeared to her again in her apartment. Gela is once again mysteriously inside a stone house with a high fence. She was still sitting at the mirror, and her mother and father were reflected in it, arguing behind her back. Now, Gela saw her reflection too. She was wearing the face of a shaggy-haired girl. It was herself. In this vision, Gela is now in her teens, but her hair is still shaggy, her hands still not reaching up to the top of her head to do her hair nicely. This time, Gela decided not to leave this space until she got some sort of coherent answer. She asked the shaggy-haired girl what she wanted right now. The girl said she wanted an end to the endless arguments. So Gela went and took her parents in different directions and stayed in the stone house all alone. After a while, she was informed that her father was in a very bad condition. By then, Gela knew that her mother was also not well after separating from her father. Gela expected that separately they could take a break from each other, look at life with fresh eyes, and begin to enjoy it. And then she would get some attention. But instead, she saw her parents' disgruntled faces. Her father stopped talking to her. In these visions, he was farther and farther away into some dark fog and dissolved there. The mother now speaks more to her daughter, but she is the only one who wails, expressing her resentment that she has sent her father into the dark fog. Gela sits on the sidelines, all waiting for their ease of being, for love and attention. After a while, from the dark fog, it is reported that her father will not return, that he has gone to her grandmother. It is up to Gela to inform her mother. When her mother learns of her father's irrevocable departure, she sits on a chair with wheels and never gets up from that chair again. Now, Gela has to roll that wheelchair, feed her mother from a spoon, and teach her to speak. But instead of words, Mommy only cries. At this point, Gela remembers that she has other loved ones, Mark, her co-workers, and her friends. But by then they have all boarded the same ship and have sailed quite far away. Gela waves after them, wanting to run after them, but she can't leave her helpless mother behind. At this point it comes to her that taking her father and mother in different directions was not the best idea. Now she starts tearing her hair. But now instead of shaggy, she now sees on herself a neatly styled, luxurious hair. It's a shame to tear it out. Did she achieve her goal of sacrificing her father and mother? She returns to her reality with this terrible thought. Would her plan not work as she expected? After all, it was advised to her by an inner voice that has never failed her, and her grandmother had advised her to stand her ground until the end. Why did her visions end so bleakly? Gela decided to make things easier for herself and took up paper again. She drew different versions of the girl with the shaggy hair. She drew either the mother or the father. When she put all the pictures together, she got an unexpected picture. Parents together, Gela, between them and a few other people of different ages. Instead of answers, Gela got new questions. Winter was already ending in the big city. The days have gotten warmer and longer. Gela had lost a lot of weight over the winter, and she had gotten skinnier and skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. It's been almost 2 months since she's been away from her parents. It was as if she had been swept into this foggy period. Her inner voice told her not to call today, and so every day, and there hadn't been a single call from her parents. Gela pulled into the underground parking garage, put her car in the intended spot, and got out. After taking a couple of steps, she found a wooden box under her feet. Someone must have dropped it. But no. The box had her initials written on it. For G. Murphy. She picked up the box and found a note in it. Don't take the elevator, take the stairs. Gela was curious. She headed for the stairs. Climbing to the 31st floor on foot is not an easy task, but curiosity takes its course. Already on the 2nd floor of the building, Gela found rose petals scattered on the floor. She followed further, but the petals were never ending. On the 9th floor, she felt that she began to pant a little. The muscles of her legs made it clear that they did not like this quest very much. Gela decided to sit down on a step and rest. As soon as she sat down, a violin sounded behind her. It was her favorite tune, Morning Cherry Trees. She had once heard this tune in a live performance and remembered it forever. But whose idea could it have been? She didn't have to think long. From the open door of the stairwell, she could hear the sound of approaching footsteps. Gela didn't have time to turn back and look before her eyes were covered by large hands and pressed against her. Only the familiar perfume hinted at the persona who was the author of the whole thing. She could hear the person's breathing, waiting for audible messages from them. But there was silence in response. Gela decided to freeze in this position, leaned on the body behind her, and continued to listen to Morning Sakura. When the maestro finished playing, his hand slowly moved away from her eyes, traveled down to her hands, gently reached his ring finger, and twirled it between his fingers. "I didn't realize you had such thick fingers," Mark continued to examine Gela's fingers. "Now we'll have to cancel the whole thing, say the ring didn't fit. Let's at least try it on first. It's a bit bare." They both laughed. Mark took a red box out of his pocket, opened it, and with his fingertips pulled out a diamond ring. "Gela Murphy, let's live our meaningful lives together. Are you willing to do that?" Mark asked. "Knowing you, as I do, I think I'll go for more than that. I agree, put the ring on, and no more tales about size." They laughed again. Gela took out her cell phone, dialed her deputy, and said that today she would be late until lunch and maybe for the whole day. She didn't elaborate on the reason. They ran back downstairs to go to their favorite restaurant and spend the rest of the day in each other's arms. Everything was going great, except for the questions from their parents. Mark is already in full swing preparing for the wedding, having had time to introduce Gela to his parents. By the way, his parents are wonderful, just as Gela had expected. They treated her with all their heart. This elderly couple lives in Europe, does not deny themselves anything, travels the world, and occasionally comes to their native land. This time, too, they didn't stay long. After staying only 3 days, they said that they would come only for the wedding. And before the wedding, they were waiting for Gela's parents to visit them. Gela promised them this visit, hoping that by that time everything would be all right. If her parents turn out to be already divorced, it would be very awkward for her to tell them. That was all. Mark began to remind her occasionally that it was time for Gela to contact her parents. But the inner voice kept silent. Had Gela lost touch with her intuition, or had she taken a wrong turn? The man in the solid coat didn't notice as he clung with both hands to the metal fence of the kindergarten and shouted along with the children. "Harvey! Harvey! Harvey! Come on, Harvey! You can do it! It's just a little bit left!" shouted the crowd of small children. The man behind the fence repeated after him. Harvey at this moment panting and stumbling over the artificial obstacles on the children's sandbox. His opponent Oliver is clearly ahead of him, but Harvey does not give up. The audience cheers in impatience. The girls on the bench squeal. A man in a solid coat is about to throw his weighty briefcase aside and run alongside Harvey and Oliver. He stomps his feet, yells, and whistles in every way possible to support the competing children. In the end, Oliver arrives at the finish line first. Harvey takes offense and runs away from the playground. The man in the branded coat is clearly running out of patience. He runs back, leaves his briefcase in the car, and, without closing the door, runs into the yard of the kindergarten. By that time, the teacher has caught the crying boy and is trying to calm him down. "It's just a game. It's okay to lose. You're new here. You'll practice a little bit and you'll beat everyone." The teacher tries to be heard, but little Harvey is full of sadness and tears. "Hello. Let me try to talk to him myself." A man in a branded coat takes Harvey in his arms, goes to a bench in the yard, and begins to explain something long. Gradually, the boy calms down. Now he has new ideas. "Let me go. I want to go there. The game's over there. Everyone's going home." "No, I want to go there. I want Oliver." "What do you need him for?" "I think he's changing in the gym." "I want to beat him up," Harvey declares. "How can you do that?" "Then the teacher will scold you tomorrow." "I want to beat him today." "Let me go." Harvey starts to cry again. The man has to explain that it's not good to fight in kindergarten. In the end, he promises to take the boy to a place where he can fight with other boys. Kolya obviously likes this idea. He rushes to change and quickly runs back out. Let's go to a place where we can fight. Kolya. It's late tonight. Mom, sister, and the nannies are waiting for us at home. We'll go there another day. We'll definitely go. The man is trying to negotiate. No, now come on. The boy starts to cry again. The man asks the driver to turn towards the elite sports club where he used to go himself. It's the most crowded time in the evening. A girl meets him in the foyer. After listening to the man and the boy, she asks them to wait in the lounge area, and she herself runs to call a trainer for VIPs. The boy and the man in the branded coat return home quite late. Harvey wanted to stay at the practice right away and work out with the boys. Well, the man could not refuse, because deep down he himself would be curious to participate in the process of forming a little man. The nanny welcomes him home. Good evening, Stan. You seem to be a little late today. Please keep your voice down. Christy's having trouble falling asleep. Isabella's sitting with her. Shall I call her? No, Valetti, you mustn't disturb her. We'll have dinner now and go up to her ourselves, says Stan, taking off his branded coat and putting it in the hands of the au pair. Carl, let's go wash our hands and sit down at the table. Harvey silently follows Stan. They help each other wash their hands, dry their hands together, and return to the table. Stan never likes to be distracted during a meal. That golden rule still holds true today. While the house helper serves dinner, he chats with the boy Harvey. After eating only a couple spoonfuls, a satisfied and tired Harvey falls asleep right at the table. The nanny gently picks him up and carries him to his room. After finishing dinner, the owner of the house goes up to the living room on the second floor to watch the news on TV, but he is no longer allowed to make noise there. Christy is not sleeping soundly, can wake up from any rustle. Come on, darling. Go better on the first floor, or even in your office, Isabella almost shouts in a whisper, accompanying everything with gestures. Stan makes a displeased face, but obeys. The television begins to play in the first floor living room. After a while, Isabella tiptoes downstairs. Stan, how's Harvey behaving? Did you talk to the teacher? Yeah, I've been involved in his upbringing myself. Today he lost a sandbox quest and wanted to beat up another boy for it. I had a hard time talking him out of it. Then I took him to my gym and signed him up for the toddler section. He really liked it there. The coach says it's the right thing to do. Physically developing traumatized children gain self-confidence, release aggressive behavior, and of course learn to stand up for themselves. I think he's gonna love it. How's Christy? She cried all day today. I thought she might be sick, so we called the pediatrician. He said it's nothing serious, just a period of adaptation. She needs to get used to new people again, says Isabella. But in general, how do you like this experience? Motherhood in this format, Stan asks curiously. It's great. I think we're used to it. I'm just looking forward to seeing our daughter, Galochka. Have you called her? No. Have you? Neither have I. I don't see the point in calling. We'll have to wait and see if she'll come running as usual. Remember when we first moved her into that apartment, how long it took her to get used to being on her own. You tell her how to turn on the car. You teach her how to start the alarm. You tell her where to buy groceries. The man and the woman smiled. Remember when we sent her to Paris, when she was just a kid? I remember calling at night asking what her favorite green salad was made of. My little girl always takes a long time to adjust to new circumstances. I missed her so much, Isabella wept. In the morning, Gela found a bouquet of flowers on her desk. I wonder who could have taken care of such a favor this early in the day. Mark couldn't, because he was still asleep when she left for work. Someone on the staff. What was the occasion? Gela went to put water in a vase for the flowers. When she returned to her office, she carefully took the bouquet in her hands, took selfies with the cityscape from the window, and put it in the water. With Mark, they agreed to meet closer to lunch and eat together. Until then, Gela worked with particular enthusiasm. At lunch in the restaurant, Gela showed her selfies to Mark and asked who could send her a bouquet of flowers in the morning. Mark looked at the photo carefully, enlarged it a bit, and said, "I think I see a note there. Or is it not a note?" Gela's eyes get wider, definitely a note. It's so deep in the bouquet that it's almost touching her. She tries to finish her lunch faster and get back to the office. On the way back, she gets caught in a terrible traffic jam. "I shouldn't have traveled so far on a workday," she thought to herself. But the note in the bouquet kept her on her toes. On the other hand, she's afraid of some secret crazy admirers. She'd met them when she was a student. But now she doesn't need any surprises. She's losing patience. She dials her co-worker's number. "Angelica, would you be a friend and take a moment for a strategic problem? Come to my window. There you will see a bouquet in a vase. Look carefully inside the bouquet. There should be a note deep inside. Take it out and read it to me," said Gela. Wow, what a romance, Lyra says, and you can hear her footsteps in the phone. "Okay, listen up, Gela. You are my shining moon in the sky. You are higher than all the stars. Without you, I don't breathe, and it's like I don't even live. You are the light of my eyes and tenderness of my heart. I am still waiting for you when you will make me happy with your one look." Signed, Omar Khayyam. That's what it says, Gela tells Angelica. What? What the hell did I just hear? Gela swears a little into the phone. Lyra laughs at the top of her voice in response. "Now that your hair is standing on end, listen to the actual text of the note. Our dear daughter Gela, we have missed you very much. You have two choices. Either you come to visit us, or we go to you with our whole big family. There are 4 of us. We are in constant need of 2 potty pots and impact-resistant utensils, if anything. Take your pick. Your mom and your loving dad, Gela. That's so touching. You should go and see them, I think." "That's right, Angelica. I'm not here today. You'll have to manage things yourself. See you tomorrow." Gela hangs up and dials Marcus. "Marcus, you were right. My parents seem to miss me. They're very mysterious. They're threatening to come to our house with 6 of them, and there's some kids there. Why don't we just go over there ourselves?" "No problem, be ready at 7. 0 p.m., Mark answered. Gela rang the bell at the front door, but didn't wait for someone to open it. She has her own keys to her parents' house. Isabella came down the stairs of the 2nd floor. "Gelochka, my daughter." Mother and daughter embrace in silence. Mom wipes her daughter's tears. The daughter can't calm down. "Mom, I'm sorry. I only wanted what was best. Let Dad forgive me too. I did it all out of desperation. I had strong emotions at that moment. We're fine. My dad and I worked it out. I sold the studio. He's done with his barber lady. It's okay. Stop crying. We should have stopped in time too. Let's go to the living room. You can't talk loudly on the 2nd floor. You can't talk loudly on the 2nd floor. Your sister's very restless." "Mom, what's with the riddles? Did you and Dad have 1 child each in 2 months? Gela asks, and they laugh with Mom in her voice. "Mom, this is Mark. I hope you remember him." Gela smiles enigmatically. "Oh, Marcus, that nice young man. The representative of a dynasty of lawyers. How can one forget such people? Come in and have a seat. Why don't you look like yourselves?" Marcus gave the cake to the housekeeper, handed the bouquet to Isabella, and everyone settled down in the living room. "Where's Papa?" Gela asked. "Daddy will be here in a couple hours. He's practicing with Harvey, your brother. I have a brother and a sister." "So Mom, tell me more about what you guys are doing here." "Well, Dad and I had a heart-to-heart talk after you tried." Mom gave Gela a special look. "We came to the conclusion that we want a change in our family. And what changes can we have in our situation?" Just at that moment, we were invited to a charity event. There we learned that a boy named Harvey and a girl named Christy had recently had their parents die in an accident. The grandparents there are very old, couldn't handle the little one. Once I saw them at the orphanage, I never wanted to let them go back. They're both healthy, smart. True, they have experienced a strong trauma. First the loss of parents, then the orphanage. Now, with the help of nannies and pediatricians, we are recovering. Mom, how do you feel about being a mom? Are you doing okay? I'm great. It's like I have a new life. You're a big, independent mom. It turns out we've been longing for some emotional warmth in our lives. We've decided to forget the past like a bad dream. Dad's so happy. It's like he's in a second childhood with Harvey. He's so excited to be a part of his adjustment. He takes him to preschool, then to practice. I hope you won't be jealous of the little ones, smiled the mother. No, Mom, on the contrary, I am very happy and happy for you. Then we will wait for Dad, and we have something to decide together about your trip to Europe. And I need to consult with you about the wedding. Oh my, I really like this course of events, said Mom and ran into the kitchen to hurry up the helpers. I told you, everything will be fine. Yes, it is. Everything was fine, as if by itself. And it was just something to listen to. Geller rested her head on Mark's shoulder. Things were really going well.